Hi everyone, this is CasTuah,
Yeah, so just to
episode
give
1.
a little bit of a background on this podcast, it's going to be a podcast for all up and coming high schoolers as well as middle schoolers. We're just wondering about, high school experience, courses, all that sort of stuff. I guess I'll give a little introduction about myself. I'm a grade 12 student at Maryville. My name is Lucas. I enjoy working out, robotics, coding, and hope to do something in CS or something like that. Duncan, you want to take it away?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm Duncan. I'm also a grade 12 student, and I'm currently finishing up IB at Maryville High School. And I'm very interested in like track and active at the school and a bunch of other sports related activities. And I hope to go into medicine in the future. Nelson, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, so I'm Nelson, also a grade 12 student at MHS. Um, I'm very involved in music, volleyball, sports, and also like coding, robotics, that type of stuff. Yeah, Dal, what about you?
Yeah, my name is Dal. I'm a grade 12 student at Maryville High School, and I'm really interested in literature and writing. And Kenyan?
All right, yeah. My name is Kunyan. I'm also a grade 12 student at Maryville High School, and I like playing games online and social.
All right, that's
All right,
great.
perfect. That concludes our
So-
introduction. So now we'll go into brief session talking about IB1. And I think Lucas would like to share.
Yeah, I guess I'll give a little summary. So today, like Duncan said, we're going to talk about IB1 and IB2. Specifically, we'll be talking about things like course selection, what we regret, what we wish we did, why we chose the course that we did, and also just talking about like IAs and stuff, and EEs, TOK, all the stuff you'll have to do in IB. Dow, do you want to start off with one of the first topics?
Yeah, so this is actually going to be a series, a podcast series with multiple episodes. And this is our very first episode. We're going to run through our experience in transitioning from grade 10 to 11 and then from grade 11 to 12. So, Kanyan, I'll let you start with what do you think was the biggest change between grade 10 and pre-IB into like actual IB grade 11?
Well, there are definitely many changes from pre-IB to IB. There are many academic changes as well as social changes, but I'll mainly talk about the academic changes that I have realized. One major change is definitely the addition of a mark band. Whereas in grade 10, we had only the raw score on our tests and projects. Going to grade 11, which is IB1, you are introduced to a new thing called mark bands. And this thing really changed the way I perceived marks and the way I chose to study and how to approach my work. Because of this mark band, there was this leniency in your tests and your projects, but it also affected many other things that will be later touched upon. So I feel like this is definitely one of the major changes from grade 10 to grade 11 in terms of academics. But as I said earlier, there are other things outside of academics as well. And I'll pass it on to Duncan to see if he has anything to add on to that.
Right. So I would say the course selection, but IB1, IB2, very important to what you plan to do in your future career. Because based on personal experience, there are three IB sciences, and out of these three IB sciences, you can only choose two of them. And for me personally, I chose biology and chemistry for IB1. And my other friends like Lucas and Dow, Kunyan and Nelson, they all chose physics and chemistry because they were willing to and were interested in pursuing a field that was CS related engineering. But for me, I found biology and chemistry to be advantageous for fields within medicine. That's why I chose sciences. So definitely, when grade 10 course selections were out, you needed to be very careful, be very proactive with what types of courses you want to choose, and to really make up your mind what you were interested, what career you wanted to go into, or IB1 even started. I think that would be the advice I want to give the most. And if you've already selected your course, which I believe the deadline has already passed, you can talk to guidance about it and try and get your courses changed as possible because they do take a lot of course changes at the start in September. Nelson, would you like to add something on to this meticulous course selection?
Yeah, so I actually want to clarify something where Duncan said that you two IB sciences. So originally you can only choose one, but most people decide to opt out of their arts and replace it with their sciences, which IB is totally okay with. And so because of that, I think each of us here decide to drop our IB arts. And yeah, it's really your sciences is probably one of the most important course selection paths that you can decide when transitioning from pre-IB into actual IB1, as it really limits and like sort of determines what sort of career path or post-secondary options you're sort of limited to.
Just to add on, I definitely agree that actually before that I'll talk about the caveat that Nelson addressed. I think on top of choosing another science, you can also choose another humanity. So that is an option if you are interested in more like law or politics or something like that in your future. Taking a second humanity as opposed to a second science is another option if you drop an art. And also, if you do choose, let's say, like physics and chemistry to be your IB sciences, and you decide after a while, like I actually don't like these subjects that much. It's not the end all be all. We actually have a friend, Danny, that this happened to him, but he ended up deciding he wanted to go to health sci. So he took a bio as an Ontario course, and that's perfectly fine. It's something you can do. Like Duncan said, you just need to get in contact with the guidance services as soon as possible whenever you realize like you want to make a switch or something. But that about wraps up, I think, what we wanted to cover for course selection, unless anyone has anything else in mind.
So actually, another big decision to make is the Group 3 IB course you want to select. So at Maryville High School, we have digital societies, geography, as well as history. So me personally, I took geography and I decided to actually fast track the course, meaning I took IB1 geography in grade 10 so that in grade 12 I wouldn't have to take, I would have one less exam to write. But I'm pretty sure in here we have everyone who took different options. So I think Kunyan and Nelson, they chose digital societies. So if you guys had something to share about that experience.
Right. So, the society was it was an interesting course as it was very new when we took it, and it's also a 1 year course as compared to geography, for example, which is like 2 years. And due to it being very new, wasn't we were kind of just like the guinea pigs of the year. Were just testing. Watch out! Watch out! Watch out! Watch out! Content should be covered, and how heavy the workload should be, stuff like that. And because of that, it was a very like testing year. Like it wasn't very set in stone. The curriculum wasn't very straightforward. It was pretty fluid. Um, and but in the end, it was still a great experience. And because of that, Nelson and I can take one less exam this year. Um, but once again, if you're interested, I feel like it shouldn't really matter what type of course it is. You should follow your passion and you should follow what you think um, is good for your future. So yeah, if it's whether it's history, whether it's geography, whether it's like business societies, doesn't really matter. It should always follow what you think is right for you.
All right, so to clarify off of Kanyan, he said that taking digital societies, we get to take one less exam this year. So even though it wasn't like fast tracked or anything, Maryville currently only offers digital societies as a 1 year course. And one important factor about that to consider is that because of that, you can't take your IB Group 3 course if you're taking digital societies as an HL. So when it's all crammed sort of into 1 year, you're sort of forced to take the exam as an SL. So Yeah, that's an
Yeah,
important factor when considering what courses you want to or plan on using for your HLs and SL.
Hmm. And I think that is a nice transition into our next section, which is SLs and HLs of courses. I think that's a very big determining factor on like what you should be taking, and like honestly, we should just go on to the plan of like how HLSL work for IB2. Does anyone want to start off
Yeah,
for HLSL?
yeah, I'd be glad to start it off. All right, so I think the first one that a lot of people come across is HL versus SL for math. Right now, I'm in HL math with Dow. Nelson was in HL and then dropped to SL, and the other two people in this call are just SL. So yeah, I think you come across this pretty early on in like grade 10, um, like before grade 10, where you're forced to choose between the quote unquote HL versus SL for grade 10 pre IB math. Um, the only really determining factor there is if you can go into like AI math in grade 11 and 12 versus HL math. My recommendation would probably just be to do the HL math in grade 10 because I don't think there's much difference between course content. I didn't take the SL course personally, so I don't know, but yeah. And then from there, it's more just about what you're passionate. I think a lot of people like demonize sort of HL math. It's definitely not as hard as people make it out to be. It's just you need to commit some more time and then study a bit more. But honestly, apart from that, there's not much to it. I don't think. What do you think now?
yeah. So SLs and HLs, I think one big focal point to talk about is actually HLs aren't necessarily harder. They simply have more content. So for example, HL physics compared to SL physics, HL physics simply has more topics which it covers, and so the exam is longer. However, this doesn't mean that the questions you receive on the exam are actually harder. And yeah, so something that is interesting about HLs and SLs in general is a lot of people decide to take HL English. I think most of us here in this call actually chose HL English because as it was like advertised by the teachers was it was just one extra essay on the exam. Kunyan, do you have something to talk about in to share for
Yeah.
HL
So
English?
yeah. So as Dal mentioned, I think it's very important to understand that HLs and SLs are both mandatory for students in IB, and it's important to know that it doesn't necessarily mean HLs are harder than SLs. And just like Dal says, for English, we just have to write one extra essay as well as an HL paper, HL essay. But you will be completing that during school, so you don't have to worry about that. But the difference between HL English and SL English isn't that big of a deal. Like in class, for example, the HL students and the SL students will both write their tests together. They will both do their projects together, and there's really no difference in terms of like classroom activities and evaluations. So as such, you shouldn't be deciding on which HL or SL to do based on whether you think that this subject is going to be harder as an HL or harder as an S or easy as an SL. It shouldn't be that determines whether you take it an HL or not in that subject. It should be more of a whether or not you want to learn more content in this subject, whether you think that this is right for you, and or maybe you just have an extra slot for HL that you really need to use it on a subject, and you can just choose one that you think will be the easiest for you. Yeah,
Right.
so uh, I'll give it. I'm moving on back to Dao
Yeah.
to see if he has anything to say.
Yeah. So for HLs, you get to choose three HLs or four HLs if you really want to. I think most of us here have chosen three HLs. However, some people I know actually chose four, which is kind of tough, you know. It's like it's like aura. Yeah, Duncan, what do you have to share? Or Nelson?
Yeah, I can jump in first. So you might be wondering why you would take four HLs when like the base minimum is just three. I believe I talked to one of my friends who is at an Ivy League. He said that having four HLs is advantageous in applications abroad. So that means applications for universities that are outside Canada. For example, the United States do look at the number of HLs you chose and the amount of rigor, and they might consider that you took one more HL into your application and consider you sent. Another one that I feel like is advantageous is if you were UK, having four HLs also has the similar edge over other applicants if you took four instead of three. So, but it's not mandatory at all if you were to apply, say, for example, in Ontario only or to UBC. They only look at the base minimum, there's three HLs, and that you have your IB diploma. And I'll bring it to Nelson now.
Yeah. So most of the courses, the main difference between HL and SL is just more content to cover. Actually, like to like put with like Lucas's point, I do actually think that math is the biggest difference between HL and SL. It definitely has a way more like amount of topics to cover between HL and SL compared to other courses such as like physics and chemistry and whatnot. So for example, since I did go from HL math last year and then for this year I went back to SL math, um, all of this year's content that we covered in IB2 SL math this year, we had already completed all of it last year in HL IB1 math. So that is like, although the problems are not necessarily harder, I think the amount of content that it covers definitely is the biggest gap compared to the other courses.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
if I could
Yeah.
tag back in for one more second, just addressing what Duncan said before about applying to universities. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but when you're applying in as an Ontario student, at least within Ontario, you will be applying with your OSSD and your Ontario grades and not your IB grades. So they won't consider like HLs you took at all. So honestly, like me personally, I don't think you deciding like I want to have the hardest HLs to look good should have any impact on your like choices. I think honestly, just choose things you're interested in. Choose to learn more in those subjects, and if you have anything left over, then just choose an easy one so that you can have maybe learn something interesting and it's not so challenging on yourself. Yeah.
All right, can we get a time check now? So to see where we're at.
Uh. Yeah, I'm not completely sure, but
I think yeah, we did cover a lot of material for this welcoming first episode,
Yeah.
and
If you guys have any questions, make sure to drop a comment, send us an email, anything.
and yeah, please send us questions, and we'll address them next episodes of this CasTuah series.
Oh. All right, thank you, everyone.
see ya.